I recently read an article in Politico, and it was titled, "Everything is Awesome." It's true. And the article detailed all the good news about the economy. 5% GDP growth in the third quarter of 2014, unemployment under 6% now, a new all-time high for the Dow, low inflation. Despite the headline, the author did recognize that not everything is awesome, but his point has been repeated several times. The stock market is soaring, and that's great if you have a pension or you have money in a mutual fund. But if you and your husband or wife are both working full-time with kids in school and you're among the half or so of all Americans who don't have any money in stocks, how does a booming stock market help you? Corporate profits and GDP are up. But if you work at Walmart and you are paid so little that you still need food stamps to put groceries on the table, what does more money in stockholders' pockets and an uptick in the GDP do for you? Since 1980, guess how much of the growth in income over the last 32 years, how much of the growth in income did the 90% get? Zero. None. Nothing. In fact, it is worse than that. The average family not in the top 10% makes less money today than they were making a generation ago. So who got all of the increase in income over the last 32 years? 100% of it went to the top 10%. All of the new money earned in this economy over the past generation, all of that growth in GDP went to the top. All of it. Since the 1980s, too many people running this country have followed one form or another of supply-side or trickle-down economic theory, and many in Washington today still support it. When all the varnish is removed, trickle-down just means helping the biggest corporations and the richest people in this country, and claiming that those big corporations and rich people could be counted on to create an economy that would work for everyone else. Trickle-down was nothing more than the politics of helping the rich and powerful get richer and more powerful, and it cut the legs out from underneath America's middle class. Pretty much the whole Republican Party, and if we're going to be honest, too many Democrats, have talked about the evils of big government and called for deregulation. And it all sounded good, but what it was really about was tying the hands of regulators and turning loose big banks and giant international corporations to do whatever they wanted to do. Turning them loose to rig the market and reduce competition. Turning them loose to outsource more jobs. Turning them loose to load up on more risks and then hide behind taxpayer guarantees. Turning them loose to sell more mortgages and more credit cards that cheated American families. In short, turning them loose to do whatever juiced short-term profits, even if it came at the expense of working families. The world has changed beneath the feet of America's working families. Powerful forces like globalization and technology are creating seismic shifts that are disrupting our economy, altering employment patterns, and putting new stresses on old structures. Those changes could create new opportunities, or they could sweep away the last vestiges of economic security for 90% of American workers. Those changes demand new and different economic policies from our federal government. But too many politicians have just looked the other way. Instead of running government to expand opportunity for 90% of Americans and to shore up security in an increasingly uncertain world, instead of rethinking economic policy to deal with tough new realities, for more than 30 years, Washington has far too often advanced policies that hammer America's middle class even harder. We need to talk about jobs. We need to talk about work. We need to talk about one thing more, and that is politics. If we are ever going to unrig the system, then we need to make some important political changes. And let me give you a place where we should start. We know that democracy does not work when congressmen and regulators bow down to Wall Street's political power. And that means it's time to break up the Wall Street banks and remind politicians they don't work for the big banks, they work for us. I believe in that America. I believe in what we can do. I believe in the future we can build. And I'll tell you this, I'm going to fight for that America. And if we fight together, that's the America we will build together.